How's it going? How's Arizona?
It was warm and then it was cold.
It was warm and then it was cold.
It's kind of like here, just a little more extreme. It's like all of a sudden, it's like you're out and it's like 90, 100 something degrees. And then within a week, boom, it changes. And then it's like, oh, it's like freezing cold in the morning now.
So you went from, when did you go out to Arizona?
I went out there
LA?
September.
September.
I was there the whole month of September pretty much.
Okay.
And I've been kind of coming and going.
Okay.
And so I fish in the backyard.
In Arizona?
Yeah. Catch and release.
Catch and release, huh? That's so sad in a way.
Well, I mean, it's actually quite nice because they're my friends now, the fish. And I see the same ones. I have little names for them. And some of the big ones I see over and over. And like they're these big kind of koi.
So you guys have like a pond?
Yeah,
in
it's
the
like
back?
well, they call it a lake, but yeah,
Lake,
it's kind
okay.
of but it's a pond, yeah. I wouldn't call it a lake. It's a little man-made thing.
What brought you out to Arizona?
My family moved out there, and my mom is getting on in her years, so I had to spend more time with her.
Taking care.
Yeah, but these fish, they swim around, and they make their rounds, and it's almost like they caught on to this game. Like they know it's catch and release. And it's almost like they see me, they'll come around and they see you. And then more of them will come, like their buddies will come. And it's almost like they see me and they're like, okay, it's on. Like it's a game. They're like, see if you can catch us.
Really? So they know.
Yeah,
They know.
I think so. And then when I catch one, the other buddies are swimming with them. And then I get them out, I take a picture and I put them back in. Like
That's probably pretty meditative then, huh? Like in a way that you're connected to the fish.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think, what is so weird is, I mean, I fished since I was a little kid, right? And to me, like there is this connection that you feel through the fishing pole and the line when you do hook a fish. And it's like you feel that energy on the other side. And when you're playing them and coming back and forth. And I guess I think like that is nice about the catch and release thing. And it is sort of this closed system, right? You only have so many fish that they plant in there. I mean, they were made in a lab or whatever, but you can feel that, it's like some mornings there's no fish out, they're not swimming around where, I don't know necessarily why. Some days they're more and some days they're not. But there are days where you don't see any, all of a sudden I'll see one. I'm like, oh, and then it just gives me a different energy. Even if I don't catch them, I see them flipping around. I'm like, okay, they're there. And then when you play them, they come in and then you let them go. And then like this one day I caught the same guy twice.
Really?
but it's almost like, again, I mean, I don't know the consciousness of fish, but I mean, it is like they come by and they go, hey, what's up?
It's got to hurt, right? To get the hook in the mouth.
Well, I hooked myself too, right? Like I got the hook in my finger and I took it out and I was like, oh. But so, you and it's barbless, right? So it doesn't stay hooked. I feel bad for the little ones. Sometimes they swallow it too deep and then it's hard to, sometimes.
It goes to the stomach?
Yeah, and sometimes they die. And so the little ones, but
How is it fishing? Like, cause you grew up in Washington, right?
Yeah.
So you grew up fishing there?
Fishing, crabbing, squidding, yeah.
In the ocean?
I guess. I mean, it's like we were in Seattle, but I guess it's the ocean that comes in. I'm not very good at the geography. But eventually,
salt water.
Yeah. Eventually it comes in. I mean, that's the big thing there is the locks where the salt water connects to the lake, the freshwater. Everyone goes there when they visit.
Nice. And you just did. I saw you on Jacques. He has a new podcast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No gi required. He's starting a new podcast, and he just had the new one that just came out with Russell Peters.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he's a super funny guy.
And for Jacques, he's been teaching. I mean, man, he's been teaching. I don't even know since when. Like he was Draculino's mentor.
I think since he was a teenager.
Pretty much, right?
Like he was the head instructor at Gracie, the original Gracie Baja.
Right.
Draculino, that whole crew.
Right. He was a mentor to all of them.
Yeah.
All the the main guys, right? Gordo and all those guys.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Right?
That's crazy. And he still looks so young, you know, I feel like.
And they're not that far apart in age at all, right? It's just, he was part of the family. So
and then speaking, doing the podcast with Higgin, like I didn't realize Higgin was like Carlos Gracie Jr.'s first black belt. That was crazy, you know, when Holes Gracie passed, like he was his champion. And then of course, like Carlson Gracie, they had the rivalry, you know, but he was one.
Well, now I'll have to listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
I think he just did Jacques as well.
Oh yeah? Okay, cool. I got to get Jacques in person, you know.
But it's always going to be interesting because it's like now they're brothers.
Right.
And it was so funny when I went to do the podcast, I got really nervous. And I don't know, because it's your teacher.
His.
Yeah, because it's your teacher, you know. So I don't know, it's just a little bit different than any other podcast, like with friends or people I don't know. And it was just, okay, what's he going to ask me? And, you know, because he knows you so much better over a longer period of time. And it's like, uh-oh, maybe he's going to bring this out or that out. And, you know, you just want to do a good job, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting. What did he ask you?
Oh, I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I haven't heard it yet.
Oh, okay.
You know.
About your career and stuff? Like,
yeah, things like that.
Okay, that's cool. I'll have to listen to it.
Yeah.
It's a no-gi required.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, he only has a few out so far, but.
Okay, cool. Let's check it out.
I think it's going to be pretty amazing, you know. He's going to have some pretty amazing people on there.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was quite honored to be on it so early.
Like here, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I was here at the beginning too.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, you have your own podcast too, like Girls and Geese, right?
No, I was on Girls and Geese, but I have the Grapple TV podcast.
Grapple TV podcast. Yeah. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with the Girls and Geese podcast?
So that's Shama Ko's group, Girls and Geese, and they do a lot of events.
Okay.
To promote women, they have like these big, open mat type events. Well, they're not quite open mats. You know, they have different black belts helping instruct and do different things. They usually have one the Sunday after Masters Worlds, that has a big turnout. Usually it's in Vegas. I mean, who knows what's going on this year, but yeah, usually it's in Vegas. And she has been doing these podcasts now with different women. The one I was on was 3 of the Dirty Dozen were on. So it was Chris Shaw, Cindy Hales, and myself. And, you know, just getting more of that information out. Right, whether it's current stuff or historical, and you know, kind of finding out what it was like in the old days.
Yeah, how was it like in the old days?
It just wasn't as friendly, but you know, people.
And you weren't even like the early days.
No,
right? Like a Leka.
Yeah, like
it's like crazy early days.
Yeah, so there were definitely people before me. I think 1 or 1.5 generations before me, right? And then I came in. And there were some women down with her, you know, at Higgins. But aside from that, there weren't really that many women. But I think the sport in general is just more friendly now than it's ever been to men and women.
Men and women, yeah, right? For sure. More professional, less fight clubby.
Yes. Yeah. Before it was just like you just had to survive. And then if you were still there after 6 months or a year, people would start talking to you.
How many years would you say?
6 months. 6 months or a year. They're like, oh, you're still here.
White people, white belt. White people.
Why does it always have to be about that, Alberto?
Why do you have to go
belts
there? Are people too. White privilege.
White belt privilege. You have to be a little bit nicer to them.
Man, I think it's a little bit like, you know, not we take care, right? But it's like a little bit like that. You kind of earn the respect, you know, that you're going to be around, you know, and you're serious, you know, they're usually not just coming in to check it out. Right.
Yeah. I think, in some ways, I think maybe people last a little bit longer, but ultimately I think this kind of kinder, gentler way, like eases people into it. And I think it helps retention. But I also think ultimately the sport is really difficult and there's a lot of pain and frustration, and it's a long-term journey. It's not something that you jump in, get your black belt, and jump out in 2 years. So I think eventually people that don't that would have washed out, still wash out anyway,
Yeah,
right?
I think so,
because
too.
of that long duration and what it does to you as a person. You know, it changes your mind and it changes different things about you, and it takes a
Or
lot.
everything about you, right?
Well, yeah, and it takes a lot to sort of build that or be broken and build that over years. I mean, that's kind of harsh to say, broken. You know, it's not like that quick. I think like a boot camp, but I think it fundamentally changes you, and it's a difficult journey. And I don't think everyone will stay in the journey. Right? And you know, just life happens too.
Yeah.
Pandemics happen. I don't know, whatever.
Pandemics. Oh my God.
But then, you know, like I've gotten sick. You've gotten sick, and yet, you know, I had to stop training for a few years. I never thought I'd come back, and then eventually you get sucked back in because it does become a part of you, and it pulls you back in. And you see the positive stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
How has jiu-jitsu changed you?
I think
Because it's different things in different parts of your life, right?
Yeah.
Different ages.
And who knows, you know, maybe the same things would have happened without jiu-jitsu over time. Because we don't know. You take one path and you don't know what would happen if you had an alternate life. But I think as you get older, you know, life changes. But I think definitely things like trying, you know, control issues, that when you're training, you know, it's like you want to do one thing and you don't get to do that thing that day in that role. And you deal with what's in front of you and you stay in that moment. And I think that really transfers to life.
You let go, you're less controlling on things that you can't control.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I wanted to work on this particular move today, and too bad I'm not. You know, I'm getting smashed, and I'm working defense today, not offense. Too bad. And so then I think in life, it's like, you know, going back to pandemic, like, I mean, everyone's had to deal with it very recently. It's like, you can't control this. It's like, okay, how do I control myself and change my response to things and deal with it and make my own judgment on it instead of wishing something was different out here. It's
something
like
we
changing
can't control.
changing something in here. So I think jiu-jitsu
Maybe
more than anything does that.
Maybe this is all, it's just a test, right? For us.
I keep thinking this is a big punked episode.
Punked.
Yeah, like it's like, just kidding. Sorry we robbed you of a year of your life, world. It's like, oh, look, there's Ashton Kutcher. No, he's just here to train. He's not here to tell us it's a joke. It isn't really happening. No, he's just here to train.
Oh my God. Right. But it is such a test, right? Of our mindset and just, you know, no matter what happens, like, okay, it wasn't, you know, I got smacked. I wanted to work on this, but I can't do it because for whatever reason, I'm just being humbled, right?
Yeah. And so now how do we take advantage of the situation to get something out of it? You know, okay, well, I guess I get better on defense today since I'm getting smashed, or I'm getting better at just tolerating that pressure. And same thing with what is going on in the world. You know, you just like, how do I tolerate this? How do I not let this shut me down? You know, it's like, you're getting smashed. What are you going to do? Quit? You know, like, if it's unbearable, you tap and you start again. But I think you have to do that in life as well. You know, where do I go? Okay, I can't do this right now. Let me figure out how I can go fishing. Or whatever the case may be. You know, you have to find whatever keeps you in that place where you're positive and you're moving forward, even against all the
odds,
roadblocks.
Yeah, for sure. Like all the high level jiu-jitsu guys that I talk to, and just I think high achievers, right? They all say the same thing, you know, just like mindset. You know, we can only control our mindset. Yeah. Right. And so this is like such a test, and yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, right? With jiu-jitsu and a lot of gyms being closed, and then, but you know, liquor stores and other things are open. You Yeah.
It's just there just seems to be a lack of consistency.
I mean, and then it's like, okay, what's essential? What's non-essential, right? Like this business is essential. The business owner, it's essential for that business owner, and it's essential for the people that it serves. There's a reason why it exists.
Absolutely. Like even in regular life, you know, I think for me, a lot of my time training in the earlier years, and maybe it's not so healthy, but it was like an escape, right?
Yeah.
It's like what jiu-jitsu does is that it makes the whole world disappear. And again, like I said, maybe it's not always positive, but you know, maybe that's
how in the moment, right?
Yeah. And so you're, for that hour and a half or whatever it is, you have no concern. You know, aside from being in a padded room, you have no concern about any of your problems outside. And all you're worrying about is surviving. And it's so present. And if you check out, man, you pay for it. So then you go, okay, it brings you back to that present all the time. And I think it trains you to do that. But like I said, like, you know, maybe in some ways it was a bit of an escape for me. But maybe it was necessary for me as well. And I think that happens for a lot of people. I
told you that story about the black belt psychologist guy about
let's tell.
Yeah. So he's talking about basically, I was like, well, how come jiu-jitsu people that do jiu-jitsu, why do I feel like they're always young, you know, and like just they're young, you know, we see some people from high school or whatever, and they're like, they look really old.
Oh my gosh.
You know, but people that do jiu-jitsu, they stay like young, you know? Yeah, for sure. I mean, at least in spirit, right? But then for sure, they feel they stay young, you know?
But they're healthier.
They're healthier,
right?
For sure, 100%. And so I was like, why is that? And we started talking and getting into deep conversation. And he's like, yeah, you know, when you're a kid, everything's in the now. And as you get older, everything's either in the future or in the past. You're never like in the present. And so jiu-jitsu brings you back to your childhood. Oh. So, you know, to the now, and you know, that keeps you young. That was his analogy.
That's really cool.
It's true though, right? Everything's in the now. When you're a kid, you can't say, oh, in 30 minutes or an hour, a little kid that we're going to do this, you know, you have to, it doesn't exist
right now.
So, that's it though, right?
Well, do you think jiu-jitsu rewires your brain?
It does, 100%. All the neuroscience and stuff that I study, 100% it does, you know, and that's why I'm so interested in studying all these things. I'm like, how does that work? You have some like timid guy or timid girl come in here, they do jiu-jitsu and they persevere. They keep showing up, you know, because they like their professor or they like their teammates or whatever, all of the above, you know, and then it changes them forever. They become confident and totally changes them, totally rewires them from the inside out.
Yeah.
After a lot of years, right? I think you need the tack fit stuff too. Mm-hmm. You know, that's not my only thing, but jiu-jitsu is so complete. It does everything.
And so how does the tack fit?
It's just, you know, nobody taught us about, you know, Mr. Miyagi, right? Does the hand thing and fixes the shoulder. Steven Seagal in the movies, right? He does the acupuncture on himself. But I think healing should be part of the martial art, you know, the yin and the yang, you know? And so nobody really taught us those things, I think. So I feel like that completes jiu-jitsu, all the stuff that we do.
And tack fit helps.
Just completes the circle, you know, of, you know, training hard and
the movement,
rewiring yourself, but then doing it right, you know, because like you need stress, but not too much stress, and just helping more understanding of self. And because you get that more understanding of self, you're like, okay, I need to take it easy today. I don't need to train hard. I need to do more drilling, not train, go hardcore. And so it just gives you that better understanding. And then you learn the tools to do that, like releasing tension in the body, like doing the stretches after training, just all the stuff that we do, like with the club bells, you know, like the grip, you know, that grip awareness, you know, not over gripping, but, and then it just helps you clean your movement for jiu-jitsu. So like when the pandemic happened, we had classes online. Obviously you can't do jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I mean, you can try, but it's kind of lame.
Yeah. You can only do so much.
Yeah. But with TACFit, you totally clean your movement, and that totally 100% translates to the mat. Your movement, like your quality of movement, the structure, you know, and then like your breath and all those things transfer over. I mean, there's a reason why like all those like wrestlers and stuff use those big wooden, clubs, you know, they call them like meals, you know, in Iran and India and stuff. You've seen Dangal, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They even had that in the movie.
yeah. But it's completely changed your body and your.
Yeah, I feel like it's rewired me because, you know, from a lot of years of training, you become shaped a certain way, right? And so it really gave me the balance. Instead of being closed, I opened myself up, you know, so it's a process, but I think it should always be included with your training.
Yeah.
I heard John Jacques even on, the guys told me, I didn't see the whole episode yet, but he's talked about having that inside of a jiu-jitsu gym. Like that's having a complete gym, is having these things, you know? And on the Joe Rogan, when he was on Joe Rogan, he talked about having, that's like the ultimate, that's how it should be, like the gym, you know, where you have these, you know, jiu-jitsu with the strength and conditioning, but the right kind, you know?
Yeah. But with TACFIT also having Scott involved is cool because he understands jiu-jitsu.
Right. He's a grappler. Well, that's he had like a learning disability, right? And he couldn't, you know, he was dyslexic and he had all these issues, and he found martial arts, and then he started learning. Speaking of, we were wiring your things, and the neurons started to connect, and he started to learn, and you know, he went down that rabbit hole. And because he thought differently, he was able to basically, it's a martial art in a way. If you ask me, TACFIT, it's a martial art, but just with yourself. And you know what do they say? You know, like your biggest opponent is yourself. So if you can master yourself, you're in pretty good shape. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
How much of jiu-jitsu is mastering yourself?
Probably most of it, right? And it's
most of it,
because you have a person, you have different random people that you're working with or training with, but ultimately it's how you respond to that. And I mean, it doesn't matter if they're better than you or not better than you, or whatever their level is, you know, because each time you train with someone, everyone offers you a different thing to understand or to learn, right? Whether they're a little child or if they're, you know, a huge guy or whatever level they're at, it gives you, each role is different, right? And then it lets you address different aspects of yourself, right? Yeah, it's so crazy because it is about yourself.
It's all about you.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it is, right? But it's hard to control too sometimes, right? With depending who you go with, how they're gonna go.
Yeah.
But with, you know, at least with TACFIT, you can. There is nobody else. It's you versus yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how I look at it. That's how I look at it with my background, right, from martial arts and stuff.
And so, how did you get to TACFIT?
So Scott Sonnen, right? You switched it and started interviewing me.
Thank you very much.
But you know, he helped me for one of my right. I see what you did there. No, but he introduced me in 2007, right? I had one of my UFC debut and I lost, and I got tired because I was over breathing. And my first jiu-jitsu coach from New Mexico, he was a Navy SEAL, and he was always way ahead of the time, you know. And I trained with like Carlos Machado and you know, Machados and stuff. But he's like, you need to get with this guy Scott Sonnen. So he was ahead of time with jiu-jitsu, and then he's like, you need to get with this guy named Scott Sonnen. I'm like, okay, you know. So I listened to him. He reached out to me actually after my loss because he saw what happened and stuff. And then he reached out to him, and Scott, he was a grappler. So I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to, you know. And so he helped me out for my next fight, like with my strength and conditioning. And he did all these different things. We did some of the into flow stuff, and nobody had ever done these things with me before. So
and it was weird stuff because it wasn't like pushing weight, like heavy weight.
Right. It was all like, you know, and
very subtle.
And I remember like he had me lay down, and he saw how I was shaped, and I was totally rotated in. And then he had me, I couldn't even open my hands up, that, you know, dead man's pose. I couldn't, you know, everything was rotated in, and he did some stretches with me, and then I could kind of hold it better, and you just saw the shape I was in. And then he just basically planned out this whole thing, and he lived in Washington still, but he had some coaches down here that put me through it, and then we would video it and
pre-Zoom.
What's that?
Pre-Zoom.
And they would send it to him. And he actually gave me all the videos, you know, the DVDs, you know, of all those workouts. And he came down a few times on his own dime, you know. And it was, and he wrote this blog. He wrote this blog on our training, and I learned so much on these blogs. You know, like CrossFit and stuff. Like I did CrossFit, I even got certified, right? And,
Yeah.
but he just said like your strength and conditioning should not get in the way of your sport. You know what I mean? Like I did CrossFit too, and it was getting in the way of my sport. It's its own sport.
Yeah.
But TACFit, it just allows you to do it, make it wherever you want. If you just do TACFit, cool, you know, that's all you want to do, cool, you know. But even so, it's just so precise. Everything is thought through. There's a reason why we do every single piece.
It's so funny because when I would come to the class, and I think, you know, there's a portion of people that's all they do is TACFit. And then there are a few other people that do jiu-jitsu and other stuff. And I remember I would come and their modified version. And so like Alberto Crane is doing like the most basic, simple version of it. And, you know, I went through CrossFit too, and it's like, it makes you competitive and it stirs that up, right? Which I think is great as practice for competition.
Right.
But, so you're doing like the most remedial, like the most basic version of the progression. Right. And just making it very,
because that's what I needed, right?
And just being very precise about it. And I was like, okay, so then I was like, okay, I can dial it back. It's not about this pushing or competition. You know, there's no pushing. It's like feeling where it is, I guess.
What you need. It's all about you, right?
Yeah, it's all about you.
I mean, you know, we know, like, right? Because you're thinking about somebody else. I want to outdo them.
Yeah.
Right. And so the way it's set up, it's like everything is thought out. That's the thing, you know, like, man, I trained hard jiu-jitsu the day before. I need to do the remedial thing. I need to move my body to, you know, to move all the tension out and move all the liquids and all that to recover. Right. And so I can totally use that training to recover.
Yeah.
And then I feel better after.
Wait, so what do you do now? I'm sorry, I'm interviewing you. Do you train jiu-jitsu every day or a few days a week?
You've been interviewing people for so long. Oh my God. I can't even remember all the shows and things that you did over the years.
With Grapple TV, we were interviewing people.
Right.
Back, yeah.
Yeah. So what were you going to ask me? Sorry.
Well, how often do you train jiu-jitsu versus TACFit, and how do they?
So I've been so busy working and stuff, like helping like the organization, that it's been kind of taking into my time. I do little flows and stuff, you know, and I still move, you know, because I know how important that is. Like your body, it's like you know, if the water doesn't move in a pond, right? It gets all murky and nasty. So I definitely do movements and stuff to stay healthy, you know. But I do now. I try to do like maybe three times. But before I was doing it 6 days a week, you know.
And were you training jiu-jitsu at the same time?
Depends, you know. It's wholly freestyle. Like last night, I trained jiu-jitsu. I went to the affiliate we have, Legacy Glendale, and I trained with the guys. And then I'm going to train this morning with the turkey roll guys, you know.
This is being recorded on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, by the way, we're me and Felicia and I were such nerds. We just laughed at each other, like, you know, it's Thanksgiving, and we just laughed at each other.
Like, he was like, come over this week. How about Thursday? I knew that he probably forgot it was Thanksgiving, and I was like, well, it's Thanksgiving. What I said, I'm like, oh, you know, it's Thanks, and I didn't want to say like, well, I know you forgot, but I was like, it's Thanksgiving. That's okay with me if you're good with that. You're like, oh my gosh, I have an open mat.
And so we did it before. Yeah. You know, I'm going to do another one with Scotty from On the Mat today.
Cool.
And then after 2 o'clock, it's family time, you know?
Yeah.
Like we eat and hang out. But before that, this is my other family, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I saw your girls are so big.
Yeah. It was their birthday yesterday.
Yeah.
12 years old. Yeah. One of my daughters is like, she has potential. I'd love to see her wrestling and stuff too, doing wrestling. She's doing wrestling practice with one of our coaches as a wrestler.
Is there wrestling in this area?
Well,
high school or
what's that?
Like in high school? Do any of the high schools here?
They do, you know, they do.
Wherever she ends up going.
Yeah. But you know, they're doing like a special, like twice a week right now, at least, you know, like private training with Astamir, who's our wrestling coach, and he teaches the kids, but he's really good wrestler. So just works with them like a little group, you know, the kids that are serious.
But is she going to compete in wrestling?
I wanted to. Yeah, she would do. She's such a good wrestler. just naturally.
Yeah. And you've taken her to competitions too.
Yeah. We started before the shutdown, so I'm gonna hopefully get her back in Arizona.
Well, but it's interesting though too. Like
month.
she started as a young kid, like all your kids kind of
Right,
did some training, and then she kind of didn't want to do it for a little while.
You know, I don't force them. You know, she wanted to. She wanted to compete.
But she kind of didn't want to do it for a while, and then she came back. Is that?
No, they've all been around it since as long as they can remember. They've been on the mats.
But her interest in it developed.
Her interest in it developed, and then she asked to compete. She asked to compete. I didn't ask her to compete. She asked to compete.
That's awesome.
And she wanted to do it. And so I was, you know, all the character things, you know, to follow through, to be consistent, disciplined. You know, that's my job, right? To follow through. And so she's consistent now. And, you know, the shutdowns and the pandemic, there's no other programs except for, you know.
Except for Daddy.
so it's good. It's good in a way.
There's no escape.
You know, 'cause she was doing like, what do you call it? Like drill team, like kind of cheerleading stuff. You know, she's really athletic, you know. But she's a good wrestler, man. It's crazy. And I'm like, how does she like learn these things? And she figures things out too on the fly. That's part of it, right? But you're like, whoa, man, it's crazy. You know, how does she get that? You know?
Does that change your relationship?
It's nice. It's nice. You know, it's nice for sure. It's nice, like bonding. You know, so I'm looking forward to the tournaments. But it's hard too with your own kids in a way.
It is. The emotion gets involved.
They get mad at you and stuff, and you know, well, so I think it's a daughter. I don't know, father. I don't know. We'll see. You know, we're still. I feel like new in that. Well, hopefully things come back and they can compete again.
Yeah, I think. Oh man, I feel so bad for the kids right now.
How's the wrestling for all the kids? Because you were the coach, the high school wrestling coach for.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not actively coaching,
right.
But from what I've observed, you know, some of the kids that are into wrestling, you know, like they've continued. I mean, I see that there are competitions going on at club, you know, higher,
club level.
Higher levels. And I suppose people must be training somewhere, and they're going to come. I mean, jiu-jitsu has tournaments. Like, I mean,
even at the beginning, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, right? The March or April, I think April, May, it was a couple months in.
Yeah.
I read a Bloomberg article like that popped up, you know, prostitution is legal in Switzerland, but judo and wrestling is illegal.
It's so crazy. Wouldn't it be different if
you tell people that and they're like, oh, how does that work? You know, and it's like,
if jiu-jitsu people ran the government?
That would be interesting.
Well,
what would happen?
Well, I mean, maybe it would be like
Tito Ortiz.
UAE.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu is part of the school system. But yeah, Tito just got council member.
City council, for Huntington Beach.
That was pretty cool.
Man, I looked into it too, like, cause just some situations with when all this stuff is like, man, I want to have some say on that. You know, I care about my community, you know, I really care, and I want like the best, you know, and I want to be able to like fight and, you know, give my input, you know, and not have somebody else kind of, I don't know, I just want to be involved, you know.
That'd be interesting.
I mean, yeah, it's
because
crazy.
You're not busy enough.
I know, not right now, but you know, it's definitely something that I definitely thought about since when all this stuff happened.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely like,
and my grandfather, my mom's dad was like, you know, heavily into politics and stuff, and his whole life.
I mean, I think there are several wrestlers, you know, past wrestlers that are in politics, and then I mean like D1 whatever, and then Jesse Ventura. I'm not trying to equate those, right? You know, like people cross over.
Yeah.
I think it would be different, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing, right, my whole life. Like, you know, just connected to the community. So it's just another facet, and it made me realize that with all this stuff going on, like, man, I'm with the people, man. I'm with the people. Like, I want to do what's right for the people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was saying, like, I think the kids, and I've just heard from a few different friends that I've connected with that have kids, and from what I've seen, the kids that are involved heavily in wrestling, you know, it keeps them on track, it keeps them going, and they're not having issues. And then I know other kids, right? The teen years are hard enough.
Yeah.
And for them to spend a year out of school, and I just heard a
Not
couple
have
stories.
that outlet, right?
I just heard a couple stories, you know, how they were doing better, right, in school as things were progressing, and this last
Crash and
year,
burn.
wow, they were just having so many other issues, and I just feel so bad for them. You know, it's like they don't have their support system, their friends, you know, whatever, and they're sitting at their homes, and it's hard. You
Being
know?
in front of the computer.
Yeah.
That's how it kind of started with my kids. They were like in front of the computer. They weren't doing anything. I was like, man, we gotta train. And I got with another family. Like I was like, well, they were doing tack fit, and they all came in the same day. And I was like, let's do some jiu-jitsu. And that's how it started, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, and then a couple more people came, and just got to move, you know, or else you get sick.
Yeah. I mean, I think as adults we need to move, but I think as kids you really need to move. And you know how many stories there's so many stories of athletes that were these difficult children because they had so much energy until they got into wrestling or into jiu-jitsu or any number of sports that they got to focus their energy, and that was what kept
success.
them managed, right? Because they have so much going on, and if they don't have that outlet, man, that's tough.
It's crazy, the situation.
I mean, I'm sure there's some kids that are e-athletes that are probably happy. I don't know.
E-athletes.
Maybe that's working for them. And, you know, everyone's different, but yeah.
I think overall, like everybody needs to move, right? And you get sick if you don't. I mean, that's how we're designed to move.
Well, everyone's biking, right? Everyone bought bikes.
Did they?
Yeah.
Everybody?
Yeah, there was a shortage on bikes. When this started happening.
And then the club bells, we can't get enough club bells now.
Yep.
And kettlebells, they'd fly off the shelves, you know?
Yeah. Another friend of mine was like trying to get some weights, and
Right.
it was impossible.
Yeah. So we've been this whole year. It's been good for tack fit, but it's also the equipment. We just can't keep it in stock.
Well, maybe people will realize or have realized, like people that are already exercising and doing things, or maybe it was just a little part of their life. Maybe they are from this have realized how much that means. I mean, Peloton, you know,
Right.
like they're going crazy and trying to get equipment, and people are riding bikes. And I think at some point, like it brought one of the positive things, like people got more connected to their families and stuff. Maybe at the beginning, maybe they want to just kill each other now, but and the importance of exercising and or being healthy because of how it's affecting people. So maybe that might be a positive that comes out of this.
There's always good things, right? You can see out of, well, no matter what situation you have, like things can be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, and you have to look at things that way, right? Or else you just get really, then you become a victim and you get depressed too, right?
You know, I think just again, like comes down to like discipline and balance, right? You know, like the Zoom thing, like it's pretty cool. You can do like a Zoom call, you can have a meeting, and you get kind of used to it, and it's very efficient. You don't have to travel somewhere, and you can have a full-on meeting with like business stuff, you know, or whatever. And that saves a lot of time.
But it's also horrible at the same time because you never get to see.
No, I think when I say that, like, you don't have to meet every time in person, but you need to meet eventually. Like we had the TACFIT online certification.
Oh.
The last couple months, and I'm going to talk to you. I want to get you involved. You know, this next year, 2021.
Okay, we'll do
is
it.
your time. You know, you can do it from wherever, whenever.
Okay.
You know? And it's the most most thorough certification that's ever been done, and it's you got to do it. We were talking about just the online.
Well.
Situation. We had people from New Zealand, Australia, Asia, you know, Middle East, Europe, North America, all the way down to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, everywhere, all over the world, Central America, all together on this call, the Zoom. So you would see the sun come up in New Zealand, and then you'd see the sun go down in Barcelona at the same time.
Wow.
On the screen, you know. So I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. So speaking of some of the silver lining, you know, I was like, man, that's pretty impressive that this is happening, and everybody's really learning, you know. And I really learned, and I'm really excited of that capability, you know.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people weren't able to access it that easy.
Before it was just kind of Skype, right? And not everyone.
Not
really
even Skype, but you'd have to fly, and if you couldn't fly to learn, you know, you couldn't do it, or and even like I remember we were making a lot of people make fun of the Gracie online things, but it gives you more tools, right? It gives you more ways to reach people, and if you believe in jiu-jitsu, if you believe in tac fit, right, it allows you to spread it, and have people really learn if they don't have the capability to to fly out to the place or get visas and stuff too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I went to Guatemala, and one of the guys was a Gracie. I don't know if he was certified or whatever, but he was a Gracie kind of online thing student, and he was in a small town outside of another small town in Guatemala, but he was able to access it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's able to learn jiu-jitsu. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the right thing.
Yeah. There's always
of course,
right.
Balance, right?
And
balance.
especially with jiu-jitsu.
Of course. Is it going to be legit? Do they need to train with some other guys? Do they need to be watched over by a master and be like,
and
yes,
roll
absolutely, absolutely.
And I mean,
absolutely.
even before all the video stuff,
they need to come together.
People would think that with videotapes too. Well, I just watch the video and I can do all these moves.
Right.
It's like, well, but not against
like
the person that's alive.
YouTube students, right? Exactly. Yeah. It's different, like than you having like a master like Jacques Machado, for example, like looking over you. Even today, like your relationship with him.
Yeah, it's different.
It's different, and that means something.
Yeah. And it's beyond jiu-jitsu too,
it's
right?
Beyond jiu-jitsu, it's life, right? Yeah. And that's what, again, that's what this is, right?
But I also think
it's a tool for like reaching your potential in life. I believe jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah, but also like every time in jiu-jitsu, when you roll with someone, I think there's definitely this energetic connection, right?
For sure.
And it's so weird to try to explain it to people who don't do jiu-jitsu, because this person there are probably plenty of people in the room that I might not sit next to and hang out with, but yet I'll go roll around with them and sweat back and forth. And there's just this different transfer of energy, and it's not creepy or weird or beyond anything that it is. It just is what it is. But almost like fishing, like the fish, you feel that energy from another person. Yeah.
Connection.
Yeah.
Human connection. Yeah. Have you read that Try book? I was bringing it up.
I never read books. Oh. I read a lot online.
Not just that, the human, like just the need that we all have. Like we can live in this big city with millions of people, but not be connected to anybody.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, like Facebook and all that, but that's not really connection.
Yeah.
But like jiu-jitsu, it gives you that connection and that trust, right?
Yeah.
That trust, like you don't know how it is, but there's a trust there, right?
Yeah.
Whoever it is, and if that person you don't trust, he's out of the group,
Yeah, or he's just off your list, off your dance card.
Yeah.
Maybe he's
overall. He kind of. I'm just saying overall, like a really bad guy,
Yeah,
like,
Then he's
He's just gets kind of. He just doesn't show up anymore, right? Overall,
it what is that? Self-sort. I think there's a more technical term, but it works itself out.
Yeah. And then of course off your list, and not to train with that person anymore.
Yeah. There are plenty of guys where I'm cool with them and we're friends and we'll talk about this, that, and the other thing, but I might not roll with them, because everyone's there kind of for different reasons. Or maybe I don't trust them, and that's okay. But in that physical situation, maybe I don't trust them necessarily, but I'm okay with them. And it's just like connecting with people at different levels.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's part of it, when you talk about how it rewires you, but you get rewired with the community, the people that you train with.
Well, and I think also, it's, we always
past,
talk about
present, and future.
Yeah. And we always talk about like a family, but, I kind of laugh, and now we're at the holidays. It's kind of like that, sometimes you might have differences with someone, but you're not going anywhere and they're not going anywhere. Just like you're not getting out of your family and you still have to go to the holiday event. And so maybe you don't go hang out with them and talk to them, but you still have to coexist, and you have to learn to deal with that. And even when that stirs up emotions like you just learn to deal with that. And it's like, okay, I can exist here and he can exist there, and we're all good.
Yeah.
We may have differences, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Where I think like in the past, maybe I might not have been so understanding of that situation. Right.
Yeah. 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 just thinking of like how, you know, your teammates can bring out the best in you, you know, and like I sometimes I talk about it like your friends, or your not friends, but your not enemies, but what do you call it? Your rivals.
Mm-hmm.
They bring out the best in you.
Yeah.
Well, you don't realize it at the time. You kind of you kind of hate them and don't like them. You know, some people you probably you're okay, you're cool with. You know, you like them, but they're your rival. But there's some people that you really from other teams, and especially like it's very tribal, right? Back in Brazil, and then as you get older, you know, like these master worlds and all these teams, opposite teams are hanging out together, and there's like such a deep bond.
Because there's this shared history.
There's a shared history, and then you think back, and then you realize what that was. Like, man, thank you, man. Thank you for, and you brought out the best in me.
Pushing each other.
Yeah, you pushed me to my limits.
Well, you always hear the story. I've heard it so many times that I can't even give you a specific one, where people were rivals, and then maybe they fought in an event or something, and they ended up becoming training partners or best friends, you know.
Rocky Balboa.
Yeah. And you always, you know, I always love, especially, you know, like lately with the UFC, because there's not that much to see now.
Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed, right?
Yeah.
So we're at the UFC.
But, you know, sometimes at the beginning of the fight, like one guy wants to like pound gloves, the other one doesn't. And like, you know, there was all this trash talking going on because that's like the thing to do lately, you know, in the last couple of years. Right. And there seems to be like really bad blood. And I think with some people there really is. And then at the end of the fight, they've had this incredible slugfest. Yeah. And they pushed each other. And I think they both just have that understanding of what they went through. And you see them hugging at the end for pushing each other to that. I mean, just the other night, you know, like one of the guys was saying, oh, he was talking all this crap in the hotel and all this stuff. And, you know, like they were probably quarantined for a week or two at the hotel. Right. And then it was just like respect at the end, right? Because you both gone through this journey, you know. And as much as you hate each other, it's like you're connected now, right?
What were some of those moments? Do you have any moments like that you remember? Girls, or matches that brought out the best in you?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think I really fought anyone that I had a rival. Like there was no bad blood or anything like that. So, and you know, at the beginning, it's like you didn't really know anyone. I mean, we didn't have. But there was some people that you were good, like, you know, respectfully gunning for, right? Like that, you're like, I want to beat that person. Yeah. Coming up. Yeah, but I mean, I was always friendly with people. Like I didn't. Right. I don't know that I had any outward ill will to anyone. Right. Yeah. So, I think you learn. What I did learn was, I remember I had to fight a teammate, and we were friends, and I lost, and I don't know quite where that was. I think you had beat them in training. You were better than them in training. No, but I could have. I could have won it, and I could have had a chance. Put on a better match. And so it was that learning of this. It's still on, right? Even though you're a teammate or you have trained together before, but this is still what it is. I remember one match I had with a girl who didn't have a hand. And it's such an interesting process in your brain, because I think at some point I was like, felt sort of like I was like, oh, I don't know, like nervous about it, and okay, like taking care of her, and then the next thing I know, she's trying to choke me. And then it flashed through my head. I was like, man, my teacher doesn't have all his hand, and he destroys people. So better respect. Yeah, respect it. And this is competition. You know, it's not clipping. It's not banging on the table. Yeah, it's like this is what it is. Yeah. Respect and be focused. You know, it just reminds me of
there's this guy Helio Sinek. He beat like Megaton at the first Worlds. One of the Gracie Barra old school, was one of my mentors too. And I remember when I was up and coming, I was probably one of the top black belts, and he was a little bit older, not that old, but like a few years ahead. And then still, tough as hell. So I was up at a malls in Colorado, and we're like, he asked me if I wanted to train, and then he's like, I don't know what came up, but we just talked about like, I'm not gonna. He's like, he's a funny guy. So you gonna bring it? I'm like, oh no, I don't know. I'm gonna respect you, because he was like, one of my mentors,
Yeah.
And he's like, and then he told me like, you better respect, you better bring it, that's the respect. That's the respect when you do your best. I was like, okay, and he's still tough as hell, it's so tough, but I think, and then I remember there was that Submission X, whatever it was, Randy Couture and Jacques.
Yeah.
And, somebody asked Jacques actually, how are you going to, are you going to take it, not take it easy, but, because he's, Randy Couture was already in his 40s at the time. Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to show him respect by doing my best. Right. Yeah. So I think that goes right. That goes across everything. And, this disrespectful to the opponents, right? If you don't do your best. Yeah. Right.
I think it cuts both ways. Sometimes, if you go visit a school, like you're respectful.
Right. Of course, it's like,
yeah.
But it's in a way, right? Because you're, but of course, it's a fine line.
Yeah,
it's a fine line for sure.
It's situational.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want some young guy like spazzing out on me, like, I'm like, I don't need this right now to.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
I want to train, but I don't want to go like,
we're not
go crazy. Yeah, man,
And it's like, okay, here we go. Now,
so I'm not gonna.
Now I
don't need that today, So just feeling it out, right? Feeling it out, and I think white belts are newer guys, right? Blue belts, maybe even.
Yeah.
They don't have that the common sense,
Yes.
Yet.
Yes. I mean, when I think about, sometimes you go with a white belt and they're just like, they're 23 years old and they're muscling the crap out of you. And, it fires me up, but also I can't match that, right? And I have to use my experience at that point. But I also go back and think, man, I had no idea what I was doing when I was a white belt or a blue belt. I wouldn't have been able to manage myself. I was just trying to kill people too, because you don't have that understanding yet. It takes time to develop that.
Right.
And so I try not to hold it against them personally, but I might not roll with them again until they calm down and, get integrated into the system.
Yeah.
Especially being a little old lady.
A little
old lady that I am.
Yeah, right. Like, you had what's the thing you have, the
Epstein-Barr virus.
Epstein-Barr. So how does that, what does that do, and what's the scientific?
Well, the science is just starting to catch up, and I think they're
it's an immune.
Yeah, well, so the main symptom that most people get is mono. And if you've ever had mono, you most likely have.
But what actually happens? What actually happens? Like,
for years they didn't study it.
Okay.
When I got sick, it was 2007, and I was scouring the internet, and there was really no information. And every year or two, I'd start, going on my little search and find nothing. And then only recently, maybe it was like 4 years ago now. I'm not sure, but they actually think that there was a connection to being a precursor to MS. And so slowly there've been more studies, slowly.
But what actually happens, like MS, for example, like your immune system attacks basically the myelin, right? The myelin sheath on the nerve.
Yes. So you're way ahead of me on that.
Well,
I don't know. I have much more of a pedestrian general understanding.
Okay.
That basically this virus kind of just goes dormant and sits inside waiting for an opportunity to attack in future life. So that was part of the problem. It's like, it'd be 20 years later that someone would have pancreatic cancer or some sort of internal cancer that may have been caused, but they didn't think to make the connections. And so now they're starting to look into it. And actually, I think there was a few things going on with Corona and how they're related. But when I first started looking at it, I think they were saying 40 to 50, 60% of the population has it. And now when I look at it, they're saying 90% of the population have it. Most people don't know they have it. I guess it's like being asymptomatic, right? Or other people, when they hear how I never, fully recovered, like that I would have these fatigue crashes, people say like, I wonder if I have that, because they remember a day where they just didn't feel as good. And I know at some point someone's like, you're just getting old. It's like, you don't get old overnight. I can understand. I understand like getting weaker and slower over time.
Do certain things trigger it? Like you train too hard, too many days in a row, something like that?
Sometimes that, like the physical strenuousness of that, that would set me into it. And this was a while back. I think I've managed it a lot better and with different herbs and trying different things. But now it's more, it'll get triggered by the stress of certain people that I'm around sometimes. So I try to avoid those people.
Yeah, I mean those are the things with like MS, like same thing, like stress. Like I did a podcast with this capoeira master Shushu, and he has MS, and he started to go blind, and some things started to happen, and then they diagnosed him, and then they started giving him medication. He started to gain weight and get kind of lazy, and then he's like, man, like you should see this guy. This guy's like just like crazy like just freaking nature, like he's amazing athlete, so yeah, he was able to move was good. He was spatial awareness. He lost his spatial awareness, like, for capoeirista, like that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, man, I think I'm gonna go off the medication. And he did, and he started feeling better. And so what does he control? Of course, like what he eats, right? He started studying nutrition. Okay. The movement he's got down pretty much, but with that, he controls his stress. Right. And so what does that mean? Like, things stress him out, certain situations or people, right? He just cuts that out of their life. He cuts it out of his life, and doesn't do it,
Yeah.
And just does stuff that makes him happy. I think we should all do that, right?
Yeah. So that was one of the things. It's like I had to move people out of my life, job, different types of stress I had to reduce. Plus at the time I had a lot of brain fog too. So I wasn't really being able to perform in those situations either. And like you were saying, it's like we should be doing these things anyway, but it was like this thing where it's like, I was in my 40s when I got 39 when I got it, and then through my 40s when it got a little bit worse. So it's sort of, at the same time as sort of the midlife thing, it kind of, I think that happens to a lot of people. They get cancer, or their friend gets cancer, and it's like, this is the wake up call. Like, start taking care of your body.
Yeah.
Start, do the things. What do you want in your life for the rest of your life? And since Thanksgiving, it's like just being grateful for what you have, and then making decisions about what you want to do with your life. Yeah.
Sarah, we have 30,000 days in our lives, pretty much. So make everyone count.
Yeah. And there are definitely those days that you have to rest and recover, and being okay with that. I think there's just so much of this push, hustle,
right.
push, like in the last few years, like keep grinding. Yeah. And it's like, well, that got me to a certain place of accomplishment.
I think our personality is kind of that. That's where we were.
People.
Yeah. And so
it helps you in accomplishing certain things, but it also taxes you in a different way. Like there's a different price to be paid. I think for both of us, we probably wouldn't have changed it.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of people that might needlessly have to go through that, that could get ahead of it and start making those decisions. I think when we were coming up, there wasn't a lot of rest recovery days.
Right.
That just means you're being lazy.
Speaking about going to the TAC Fit, that teaches you that stuff, that awareness, like, he has like 4 and 7 day waves, so does that mean you train hard every single day? No. Yeah. And man, cause I remember studying like certain things, like, back in the day, cause I would like read a lot of like books on training, things like that. And even Mark Kerr, when I remember listening to him, the guy that's just yoked up, he trains twice and then he takes the 3rd day to recover. That was his routine.
Yeah. And when I was trying to figure out how to train before I had stopped training and coming back, but I would documenting, you know, I was like, what kind of pattern
Right.
can I do? It's like,
Right.
do I go hard 2 days and then take
Right.
a day off? Or do I go like 60% 3 days in a row? You know, I had to try to see, and I think it's the continuous that's worse. It's like better to go hard and then rest, hard and then rest, as opposed to the constant, is what I found back then.
Yeah.
But people also say, like, even when I was coming up, I would do 2 classes a day. I train every day.
I was constantly overtraining.
But I also, I mean, I was older when I started jiu-jitsu. So I also, and again, being a small female in jiu-jitsu, it's like, I figured out, people are like, how do you do that? Well, I don't train hard every class. Like, there might be classes where I just work on defense, or classes where I take it easy. I might just roll with like a small, like now I have the option, because we have women, you know, I can just roll with some of the girls. So I don't have to deal with the size and the weight of a bigger person that puts much more stress on my body. Or, you know, there were days I would stay for a second class, but I would just stay and do all the drills. So I wasn't taking the beating all the time.
Right.
You know? And I think when you're starting out too, it's hard to manage. You only know one thing. And as you progress, you know, then you can start to gauge and go, okay, well, this will be, I'm going to go train in class, but it's going to be a lighter day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as a professor and coach, I think maybe that's our job, you know, to kind of watch the guys, watch the students, right? Like, but there's so much technology now too, with the Oura rings and all these different things that you can see the sign, you can kind of get, I mean, if you're like a high level, you know, it's hard to do that with the, you know, the general population, like students, you know, but if you have a hard,
all those monitors and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it can be a ring, can be like a watch, you know, and then you can see the vitals, right? And you can see if they're overtraining. What's that thing called?
A Fitbit.
Fitbit, but
That's
there's another one too. Like Ohio Wrestling was using it. Omega Wave. Scott put me on that. It was back in 2007, and it was like this huge machine. When he wrote about it on the blog, you know, you put the information in, but now it's like just a little app and little thing that you put on, you know.
And then, you know,
but all these things to, you know, measure your vitals and are you overtrained?
Because you can tell, like, by your heartbeat and stuff when you wake up in the morning.
Right, exactly.
I remember getting into that.
Well, you can do some things that are, you can just see what your resting heart is when you wake up, and you can see, and you can feel, you know, you have enough body awareness, right? But
that's what I was going to say.
It's building those habits, right? That's why my guys too, like, we do the cool downs after training.
Yeah.
And guys, some of the, you know, like, you know, they don't feel like it or what, you know, but it's about building the habit, ingraining it as in your routine. It's building the routine, right? And you're not going to remember to take your heart rate unless you build it into your routine. Like, you don't need all this equipment. You can just take your heart rate. What's my resting heart rate? And if you're like stressed out, or if you traveled or whatever, and you traveled in, it's going to be a little bit higher. You know what I mean? You can see where you're at.
I got to get into that.
Exactly. It's building those routines.
I've heard about all that stuff, but I never could quite figure that out with the technology. But in my case, like, I started to have to listen to my body, and I could feel what was going on. Probably not in the same way, you know, but at least you start paying attention.
The TAC teaches you the right? And we don't do it. We do it after class, right?
Yes.
And I can see, you know, I do whatever I do, and I can see, like, if I traveled or something, and you know, my body's not like, it's a bit tired, right, from the travel. I can see, like, it's a few extra beats, you know, higher than it normally would be.
And then
I'm
do
doing
you
the same
back
thing.
off after that?
You know, I'm just I can see that. But then because you want to be working usually in the 60 to 80% of your heart rate max, you know. So if you feel myself over breathing or whatever, like, I just take it easy. Like you're saying, you saw me doing like the regression on the techniques. I'm just moving my body, you know, because I feel myself fatigued from whatever I did. You know, if I was training jiu-jitsu the day before hard, you know, and so I just move my body and I just stay under the thing, you know, so I recover.
Yeah.
So I use it for the recovery
you know,
workout.
It's interesting, and that's so helpful, and I need to get more understanding into that, because the way we came up, it was just go harder, you keep pushing, and then if you took a day off, it's because you were lazy.
You're weak, yeah.
And whether
it's weakness.
I think we have a better understanding about recovery now, of course, you know, with the science and stuff like that.
But Scott Son has been saying these things. When he did that blog with me back in the day, there wasn't the technology that they have now. So now it is science.
Yeah.
And he would always say, you know, you get stronger in the recovery.
Yeah.
You get stronger in the recovery.
So when I was coming up, I did it a little bit differently because I didn't have the science, but I would log all my.
We all did. Right?
I would log everything.
Right.
And so that, and I tell people to do that if they're training like that, that it's helpful because, you know, there's the whole mind, body, emotional part. So there are days where you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't feel like training.
Right.
And, you know, I would look at my schedule, and if it was maybe the second day of training, then I knew it was in my head. Mm-hmm. But if it was like I hadn't had a day off in 5 days, it's like, no, that's real. That you need to back off. You can take a day off. You can take a rest day, get a massage, whatever it takes. But that was like sort of the data set that I would use, because then it's not you going around in your head.
What was your old training routine throughout the week? You know, because you had a day job, right, too? Like at the beginning when you were training twice a day?
Well, I had a day job, and then I started working my day job around
your training,
and then
right. Okay,
eventually
great.
took over.
So what was like when you were in your heyday of, you know, training? What was your routine like Monday through Sunday? Would you train Monday through Friday and then rest on the weekends?
No, I'm trying to remember because I went through different phases with work.
Okay.
So I was a freelance broadcast graphics designer, and then I was also teaching at Otis. And so when I was teaching, there were certain days I was teaching, so I could manage that. Early on, it wasn't so crucial, and it was different. And then I was teaching a couple days a week, and then those days, I think, so Otis is over by the LA airport, LAX. And if I remember correctly, I would teach, and then after I taught, I would go train at Raw in El Segundo because it was near there. So I kind of built my world to fit those things. And then as I was teaching less, I was doing more advising of the students. So then I would schedule all my advising for one day, and I would just see students back to back all day, and then try to get back in time to train.
So how would you train? You would train, because you said you were doing, you know, twice a days.
Yeah.
So what would that routine look like for a typical week?
Well, I would just go to every class that we had.
Okay.
So there were specific class times. It wasn't just open
what were
all the time.
Specific class times?
So Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, and then Monday through Thursday nights, and then Saturday, and then usually Sunday.
Monday through Thursday evenings?
Yes.
And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Morning.
And so I would do
So Friday nothing.
Evening.
Friday evening nothing.
No.
Saturday nothing.
No, Saturday I would go to a class.
Okay.
It would be a Saturday
Morning,
class, and then Sunday I would train with friends.
Okay, so every day. Yeah, that seems.
And then I would do
like
strength and conditioning too. So at the beginning, I mean, I didn't always take every class. I would take a day off here and there.
When you just had enough, you couldn't take it.
Or I would just go in and stretch and just do a few drills too, because I think I did pay attention to that, because like I said, I was older, and I did do sports and did a lot of conditioning stuff as a younger athlete.
You did gymnastics.
I did gymnastics. Yeah. Like that was the most intense sport. I did other sports, but I remember I was 10 years old and we were lifting weights. And this was back, many years ago, before they thought, like, they were still saying things like that. It would stunt your growth. And I was like, well, I'm Chinese. I'm just short anyway. It's not going to really do anything. Like people still today think it's bad for kids to lift weights. I don't know.
Man, I remember like when I lived in Brazil, there'd be different phases, and I remember the first year, when I moved to Belo, or even when I first went to Rio, I would do every class, because there was a class in the late morning, and then there was a class in the evening. So I would do, Monday through Friday.
Same schedule.
And then and then Saturday, Saturday they didn't have. Sometimes they did, and I got together with some friends.
Yes.
And then Sunday I wouldn't, there was nothing to do, but that was the schedule in Rio. And then in Belo Horizonte, the first year I would go early in the morning, like just Jacqueline is a workhorse, kind of like probably like Jacques, but he's a workhorse. So I would go, there was like a 7 o'clock in the morning class, then there'd be our noon class, and then there would be 2 evening classes. And I would just take it. I would be overtrained. I'd be done by I would be, so exhausted by Tuesday evening probably, but then you persevere, and you keep showing up, like you say you're going to do it and you just do it. Yeah. And then I remember Thursday, one more day, of this. And then Friday, I'm like, and then I would rest on the weekend.
It's such a mental game.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And then I look at some of the judokos, you know, and that's how they do it, right? They overtrain, and then when it's time to compete or whatever, they're just like, wow, like they're beasts, you know. They recover a little bit, a couple days
like
or what
wrestlers,
day before. Wrestlers too.
The most overtrained athletes on earth.
On earth, that's it. Yeah, so they're getting smarter. They're getting smarter too with all this technology. But it's still hard because but it gives you certain mental toughness. There's a reason why we do it, right?
Yes.
There's a reason why those things happen.
There's always that thing, you know, it's like you never know when you're going to fight, and that could be your worst day.
Right.
You know? And you don't get to change it. You don't get to call in sick.
Right.
So you have to persevere, you know, deal with the adversity. So it's this weird balance, right?
Yeah.
Between how do I push myself and force myself through this, or do I need to rest?
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult thing. I think the EBV made me have to pay attention to that more. But it's hard. And it's also part of our personality, right? That we were saying, it's like, I want to do this. And then it's like your body can't do it. So then you go in and watch, or, you know, even when we were
Man,
wrecked,
I had
by the end of the week, you're still in there watching.
I had, what did I have? I had some kind of like pink eye thing, you know, and I remember like, oh my God. And you know, that was my life. And I was like, I wanted to just like go in, and I put a patch on and stuff, and get the hell out of here. And I registered for a tournament, you know?
Did you do it?
I did, yeah.
But was it already subsiding? Or did you go infect a bunch of people?
I don't know. It was one match, you know. It was a super fight, you know. It was like so messed up, but I was just so selfish. You're so selfish because I wanted to get better, and it's bad.
It's crazy because when you're doing this,
I think it went down, but I was like, it gave me like a goal to something to look forward to, you know?
Yeah.
Because I don't think they would have let me, like, because it got pretty big. But I tried to go in. Just the fact that I would try to go in with that thing on. Come on, get out of here.
Well, it's so crazy in this sport because everyone, you know, you get injured and you keep training. It's like you see people, they're completely patched up. Half their body doesn't work, and they're out there training on their other side.
Yeah.
You know, like it does change.
I've done that.
Change us.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's done
Mindset.
that. Yeah. And
mind over matter, right?
And there are definitely times where, man, you shouldn't be training, but we do. I don't know. It changes your brain.
I think just learning all these things that I've learned through TACFIT, you know, and just basically like recovering and less is more. Less is more. I remember like towards the end of when I was in Brazil, like I would train one time a day really well, you know, and then I could do drilling or whatever throughout the day, and work on stuff that I wanted to work on, but I just trained one time hard during every day, and then that was the routine that worked the best.
So similar, right?
Yeah, and I remember like, and then just kind of look at all the stuff that I know now. You know, like Mark, if you like, it's crazy that I'm referencing Mark Kerr, you know, you know, but the fact that he trained really hard twice, you know, 2 days in a row. And then the third day he recovered, you know, that I think something like that would have been probably ideal. Like Monday, Tuesday, train really hard. And then Wednesday kind of take a little recovery day, maybe just drilling or, you know, whatever stuff that I wanted to work on.
So here's the crazy question. And I wonder this for myself as well. If you apply the training principles that we're talking about, that we've discovered now, if you did that from the beginning, would you have become what you became?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. 100% not.
Because it was that drive and that obsessive craziness of going in,
just the
pushing,
thick skin and the toughness, the mental toughness.
Yeah.
And if you listen to all these success coaches and these different guys, they say if there's one quality, you know, it's like the mental toughness, like the grit, right? The grit.
So it's almost like a catch-22 in a way, right? It's like we're finding this out now because of what we've gone through, and we want to share it with people, but yet we probably wouldn't have become what we were.
There's a reason why we did it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's again, going back to balance, right? There's a time and a place.
Yeah.
But then you'd be like, hey man, like, You know, you have pink eye, get out of here. You have whatever. That's a bad example. Okay, forget I said that. You know, I'm ashamed, and I totally put it out there. You know, and we're like, oh man, that was crazy. You know, that fact that yeah, that's how focused you were. You know, that you're not thinking about anything else.
I remember,
but just training and
Yeah, I remember it was my first, and at that time, it was my first pro jiu-jitsu thing, I guess, or something. And I got sick. I had the flu.
And you trained?
No, like at the day of the tournament.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But you competed anyway.
No, I don't remember how far I had to drive. And my husband at the time was like, "You're not going." I'm like, "I'm going." And when I couldn't walk down the stairs to go out of the house, it was like, okay, I can't go. But I was determined, the whole time. And then, where's that line finally where you go, okay.
I told you that I had food poisoning. The story, did I tell you that?
No, tell me. Well, tell them.
Okay. Yeah. No, so I did like after the MS diagnosis, I did like a whole world tour in jiu-jitsu, right?
Oh, yes.
And my last stop was in Spain. There's the Nogi Worlds a few weeks before, and then my friend was going to do some seminars in Europe, and so I was like, okay, I'll go, and there's a couple tournaments that I can do every weekend. So it was 3 weeks in a row of doing tournaments, and the last weekend was in Spain, and I wake up kind of like queasy, and like I couldn't really eat, and like something was wrong, and then I got to the tournament, and I still like really like queasy. Like, I felt like I was, I thought I was just maybe stressed out from all these weeks of adrenaline and all that. And then I do my first match, and the guy throws his weight on my stomach, and I instantly feel like I have to throw up, And so I got through the match, and then I got off the mat and I threw up. Yeah, nasty. I've never done that before in my life. I would have been DQ'd, right? If that would have happened, I think, and I wouldn't have been able to continue.
Yeah.
And so then I did another match, and it was like the guy choked me out unconscious. Said I'd never been choked out before.
In the second match?
The second match, yeah. I was just totally out of it. He's like, "You want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah." That's that mindset, Oh, okay,
you
let's
just
go.
Keep going, yeah.
And I was pale, and they're like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And I was white. I was pale. I was like, just throwing up, and had no strength in my body.
But you still go because you trained that.
Okay, so then I was super bummed out, like really, like just super bummed out, and then I became friends with the first opponent that I went against, and he's like, "Are you gonna do the open weight?" Because we were talking about usually I do that, And I'm like, "Nah, man," and he's like, "I'll just put your name. Maybe you'll feel better by that time, And so I was like, "Okay," I put my name down, and then I thought about it. I was like, "Am I gonna go back to the hotel and just feel bad and feel sad, or am I gonna, who knows, And then I drank I couldn't drink water. Sorry, I couldn't drink water. I couldn't eat, And so then what did I tell myself? It was like. I started telling myself I believe in my technique, and that kind of gave me like energy, inside I felt, and I kept saying it over and over and over and over. And I was so weak. I had no power.
Yeah.
You have the flu, I had food poisoning, same thing, right?
Yeah.
Everything
and
ached,
dehydrated.
everything ached, dehydrated. And so I go out there and I win my first match, with like nothing, in the tank, and then I go out again, same thing. And then I ended up winning the open weight,
Wow.
with and that was like, I think my spiritual moment for MS that I needed to kind of be like, I can do this. I got this.
Yeah.
Like mind over matter. Just that I got that. I got this, I have the mindset, but I needed the right things, and the right things was TAC Fit. And I said, put the martial art mindset with all the right stuff.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And, that's because I was competing a lot at that time, and that was the last match I did. That
was like your big run.
Yeah. Well, I did. I was like, what if I can't do jiu-jitsu in 6 months? So I was like,
did everyone.
Yeah. So I did everything, but I did a couple. Well, this year, okay, I'm excused for not competing 2020, okay. But 2019,
everyone has that asterisk next to 2020.
No, because you're one of the people like, are you gonna compete? And I'm like,
No, 2020 gets an asterisk. It's like, it's special.
But I'll keep competing, for sure, just because it's good. It's good.
One thing I found out, you reminded me, in the past, when I would crash, it'd be like 30 minutes, and it was like all the energy being sucked out of me, and I had to go to bed. And then over time, learning how to manage it. And actually one day I was in class and during the technique, I started crashing. Like I literally laid down and started sleeping. I closed my eyes because I was just exhausted.
So you were done.
And then it was time to train, to roll. And I just forced myself to do it. And it's almost like by the end, it wasn't a super aggressive training day, but I survived it all. And the fatigue went away. And I was like, because in my mind, right? I was getting ready for a tournament. In my mind, I was thinking, what if this happens at the tournament? Because that's programmed in, right?
I mean,
I was like, what if I crash at the tournament? Suck it up, go do it. Let's see what happens. And I forced myself to go through it. And then I was fine after that. It was crazy.
I mean, the whole MS thing, like I was in really bad shape, like everything hurt to move, and I was super fatigued, and I would like just have to lay in bed, but I could still compete. I could still do whatever, not really, but I would train. I would have to like rest the rest of the day,
But it was worth it.
Well, it's my family, like, my kids and stuff, like, it was tough, it was tough, and, but it just showed me that like, just cause it's so hardwired, like, I'm gonna just whatever it is,
and doing that
mindset, it got me good, I just needed to kind of figure out all the points, and like the tack foot stuff gave me the tools
and how to manage
and understanding that more awareness. And so it was all the stuff is a blessing in disguise. And I think it's helped me like live a better life and balance with my family as well.
Yeah. I don't know how you do it. You have multiple businesses.
You're saying
3
like
kids.
You were thinking about, you were saying how
train, compete, teach.
But you were saying how like what were you saying about what were you saying before? Lost my train
I don't know. Just getting.
Oh yeah, you were saying before. You were saying about how if people bring you down or stress you out, like you kind of cut. Like it triggers like the things, and so for me, I just do things that I really love to do. And so like the podcast and jiu-jitsu and, teaching and competing and tack fit, and just, it gives me so much, I'm so grateful for the system and for the people in the community. I love you. I love like the jiu-jitsu community. I love my students. Like, of course I love my family, so I just do things that really, that make me happy.
It really helps pare down your life right to what is important.
Yeah. And so like, and because I have like more energy of all this energy now too, with all the stuff that I'm doing. Yeah. I just do things that make me happy. Yeah. So it's easy, right? If you do that.
Yeah. And you're obviously very successful at all of it. So, that comes with it, right? Like you're saying, like the way we do things, it's like all in, right?
All in. Yeah. That's it.
But it's like you have so many things going on and it's pretty amazing.
One day at a time. But I'm super passionate. Like I love just talking to people and getting to know them. Like it's amazing. Just talking to my students too. Like you never have like a sit down like that with them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you talk to somebody for like an hour and get to know about them, and it's cool.
And
it's really cool.
You see this whole other picture of them. I think also, like as a person, we were talking about being in the moment and being present. And I think it's like being open to opportunities, and that's taken you in a lot of different places and you try different things and like, okay, maybe that's not the right thing. Okay. Over here, and things, as I know, have organically kind of evolved. And when you're focused on the positive things that bring good things to you and that have helped you, then those things all follow. Right.
That's it. Well, thank you for your friendship.
Thank you.
Yeah. Your Instagram is Felicia.
Felicia
_O. Easy to find. Thank you for your friendship. Always great hanging out with you and talking to you.
I know. I can't believe it's been so long that I haven't seen you. So I'm glad we reconnected.
Yeah. And I hope, you're kind of in Arizona, but
I'm back and forth.
You're back and forth, We'll
see.
But as long as you're back and forth, it's all good.
Yeah.
So you can come in. And we'll get you on that tack fit stuff,
Yeah.
the cert, because then you can do it from wherever, Yeah. And yeah, thank you.
2021.
2021. That's it. Get past this 2020, right? The numbers sounded so good, 2020, right?
Yeah. Didn't quite
pan out.
No.
So hopefully 2021 is better.
Everyone hopes so. I mean, I don't think it can be worse, but that's what we thought all this year too, right? wait, what? But we're still here.
And let's get on the mat. Let's train jiu-jitsu again. It's been a while.